We love a good cinnamon hero. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm doing a historical romance trope recommendation video specifically for the hero type, which is a cinnamon roll. Now, if I'm going to be really honest, I actually didn't know what a cinnamon hero is until I Googled it, but Google tells me that cinnamon heroes are usually very sweet, kind, and supportive. So I normally typically don't think about books fitting a certain trope or characters fitting a certain trope, but after reading these books, I can't help but think that these characters fit the role perfectly. So let's get started with some recommendations to add to your TBR. So I think the first recommendation that I'm going to give you guys is one that I haven't really talked too much about here on my channel. The first book is called Some Like It Wicked by Teresa Medeiros, and this is actually book number 1 in her Kincaid Highland series. Now, this book I've talked about a little bit in my wrap-up, in my August wrap-up, so if you haven't watched it yet, definitely go check it out. But this one, I did mention that it's a little bit hard to rate. I feel like that this book is somewhat like kind of an iffy novel to read. You guys might be very divided on it. Like maybe like half of you guys would really like it, and then the other half might think that this is a total mess and that a lot of things are happening. But basically this book follows our heroine who is unfortunately living in a home that is not very supportive of her. So think of her as kind of like a Cinderella type of character. She's always being bullied and made fun of by her cousin who is older, prettier, and she has her way with the men. And one of the men that she has her sights on just so happens to be our heroine's crush. And they see each other as he's getting down to business with the cousin. And it's kind of like this whole sexy, voyeuristic theme happening as soon as the book starts. So it's a little bit harder to get into, I must say. I definitely was taken by surprise. But years later, they meet each other again, and she asks him for help because she is actually of a Scottish background and she needs to locate her brother. And the only person that can help her is our hero, because our hero is a soldier and he just came back from war. He has nothing better to do and he has a lot of the skills that our heroine needs. So this is them going on this grand adventure trying to locate her twin brother or her brother. I forget if it was her twin or not. But basically our hero is kind of sleazy in the very beginning because he's known as to be a womanizer, take things, lightly, not too seriously. But you can see that along the journey, he's very sweet and he's very supportive and he's always kind of like getting her out of trouble, helping her out, no matter how crazy the circumstances are. And this is why I think he's like a really sweet cinnamon hero. In the end, he won me over. So the second book that I want to recommend you is one from this author that I've read a lot in August, but I don't think I talked about her at all in my August wrap-ups. If you're also new to my channel and if you're new to my August wrap-ups or my wrap-ups in general, I typically do not talk about every single book that I have read in that month, mostly because I read way too many books, and that's not supposed to be a flex, but I read way too many books for me to sit here and to talk about every single book. So that's why I only talk about some highlighted books. And unfortunately, I didn't highlight these books in my wrap-up, mostly because I was really tired that day when I was filming and I ran out of breath. But the series that I did read from Tracy Ann Warren was the Barons of Brayborn series, and this is the book number 1 that I'm going to recommend you, called Tempted by His Kiss. And this one has the trope that I really, really like, or at least like that situation that I really like, where our two characters are caught up in a storm. So if I remember correctly, our heroine and her family member, they're going on this like road trip journey. They're in this carriage ride, but unfortunately the weather outside is really bad and she has to pull over because if she continues on this journey, she's literally going to freeze to death and she's gonna get into a very bad carriage accident. So she stops in front of this manor, which just so happens to be our hero's manor, and they strike up this conversation, this deal where she can stay in his place. And he is the grumpy character. Like, this is kind of like a grumpy sunshine trope. He's very pessimistic about life. He does not care about kinship. He does not care about, talking with other new people. He only cares about being alone and being the crazy person that he is. There's a lot of scenes in this book where you kind of question his sanity a lot, mostly because a lot of bad things did happen to him in the past that caused him this way. So I would like to say that he's also kind of like a black sheep character as well. he has a damaged hero past sort of thing, and he's also a giant cinnamon roll because he kind of flips the switch and he really cares about our heroine like towards like the middle half of the book, because he starts to realize that with her in his life, there's definitely a spark and there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. The next book that I want to recommend you is actually one that I've already mentioned before in my other videos, but I would just want to throw this one in there because he is definitely a cinnamon roll hero. This one is book number 2 in the Gamblers of Craven series, and it's called Dreaming of You by Lisa Kleypas. This one follows our hero Derek, and lots of people in Lisa Kleypas's kingdom or fandom really like Derek, and I can see why, because Derek is sort of like the fun class clown bad boy type of character that doesn't take things too seriously once again. But when he sees our heroine kind of dress up like a guy and enter into his personal space in his tavern, in his areas that he frequently visits, and he sees her getting into trouble, you know, doing things that she shouldn't be doing because she's supposed to be a proper lady, he can't help but follow her and kind of like help her on her mission to try to figure out more things so that she can write in her book, because she's a writer. And he's obviously very kind and supportive, because instead of telling her to quit, he actually volunteers, or at least they have this relationship where he helps her out and helps her find the research that she needs very quickly and safely. So Derek, very sweet, very caring. The next book I want to recommend you is one called Wallflower Gone Wild, and it's book number 2 in Maya Rodell's series called Bad Boys and Wallflowers. Now, this one was a treat, but basically our heroine is a wallflower, and unfortunately for her, she has been told that she is going to have to get married, and they have forced her to actually become engaged to our hero, who is known to be the Mad Baron. People think of the worst of him. People think that he has killed his late wife, and there's rumors and there's whispers, there's gossips all around town, and she obviously does not want to be anywhere near a guy who has an ill reputation like that. I mean, come on, like, who wants to be engaged to someone who has been accused of murder? So she and her friends in the series have like these wacky ideas and wacky plans to make her not suitable for him, from wearing the ugliest clothes to wearing too much makeup to doing crazy things in like public places. And all in the while, our hero is just standing off to the side watching her put on this performance, put on this act, because he knows deep down that she is acting and that she's not actually that type of person, because she is usually very prime and very proper, and she is a classic lady. And he's just watching from the sidelines in like complete amusement, and it's just hilarious to watch these two characters. Meanwhile, our hero is just very sweet and continuously tries to be a gentleman, and he doesn't really feel the need to defend his like reputation. Okay, so the next book that I want to recommend you is actually one from one of my favorite historical romance authors known as Lorraine Heath, and this is actually the 3rd book in her series called the Lost Lords of Pembroke series. This is book number 3. It's called Lord of Wicked Intentions, and this one is basically about this whole series is about how there are 3 young heirs, and when they were young, they were imprisoned by their uncle, who was basically crazy and wanted the title and everything that came with the title to himself. So these 3 brothers unfortunately had to separate after escaping, and one went to the sea, the other one went to the streets, and then the other one went to war to avoid being captured again by their evil uncle and being forced to be in prison or to be killed. So this is following one of the 3 brothers, and our hero has obviously been through a very, very rough childhood, a rough time, and he is coming back, and he doesn't want to be married to anybody. He doesn't want to fall in love. He doesn't believe in it, but little did he know he would, because he sees our heroine, and he is captivated by her, and he just wants to protect her, and she is being sold to be put on the highest bid. So obviously he wants to save her, and he's that protective type of hero. And just because he has like this like really bad childhood and everything, he is still very caring and very sweet to our heroine. So the last book that I want to recommend you is one from Shannon Galen. This one I've talked about recently in my other videos, but I thought I'll throw it back in here because I need more people to read this series called the Survivors series. She has published 3 books with Source Books Casablanca, but then the rest of the books were independently published afterwards. I think she's leaning more towards independently publishing her historical romances now, after doing majority of her career with traditional publishers. But this one's called No Earls Allowed. This one's book number 2 in the series. This one follows our heroine who owns an orphanage, and basically she wants to run that orphanage. She wants to take care of the children at that orphanage. But then what happened was that her father wants her back and wants her to get married and to get situated in society as a proper lady. But then what happens is that our father actually hires our hero, who is sent on a mission to go and retrieve her. But he finds himself in kind of like a big mess because he realizes that she is very stubborn and she's not going to leave. So he stays there reluctantly and he helps out around the orphanage. He has this very tough and gruff demeanor about him. He's very orderly because he used to be a soldier, and he helps around the orphanage while taking care of the children, and it's just so cute and so sweet. Even though he grumbles like all the way about like working here and like helping out and things like that, he still does it anyways, and he supports our heroine 100% with her adventures. But anyways, that is it for all the Cinnamon Hero romances that I have to recommend you, specifically for the historical romance genre. Hopefully you guys added some books to your TBR or enjoyed listening to some of the books that you've read already. And I'll see you guys again next time in a new video. Bye.